Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. You'll hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and writers that cover the NFL on a daily basis. The New Orleans Saints podcast starts right now. Here's your host, Erin Summers.
Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. I'm Erin Summers alongside John DeShazier. We have just wrapped up third day of minicamp. That means that off-season workouts are now over. They'll have a month break until they head to California, Irvine, for training camp. So get a little bit of break here. We want to go over everything that has happened over the off-season. I mean, from the very beginning, JD, we were definitely watching this offense and what it was going to look like under new offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak. What have been your overall impressions and the differences, things that have stood out to you?
I think the biggest thing is emotion. And I mean, all the players and quarterbacks and coordinators and head coach, everybody has mentioned emotion. This is an offense that will be flexible. And I guess it probably had gotten a little bit of rigid. It had been pretty much the same offensive system for 15 years, 16 years. And so it needed a reboot. And this is kind of a modernization, so to speak. This is what the successful offenses in the NFL are doing. They're running this kind of offense that Clint Kubiak has installed for the Saints. And, you know, we've seen it be successful in San Francisco. We've seen it be successful pretty much wherever it's been utilized. We saw some of it in Minnesota. So it's good to see them doing those things. Guys are getting accustomed to it. Derek Carr looks like he's, you know, I hate to get too, I don't want to be too complimentary in the offseason because it's the offseason. There's no tackling. There's
no one's really running at you.
But he looks really good in this offense for what they're doing. We'll see exactly what it looks like a little bit better when we get to training camp and there's a little bit more competition. The pads come on. You're having the joint practices with San Francisco. We'll get a better feel for it. But right now, I think the enthusiasm has to be something that should excite everyone because these guys are really into it. I think they like the new look of this offense.
Yeah. You're talking about what it looks like definitely being different, but to your point, it seems like all of the players have spoken very highly of the changes. They are excited about what they're doing and the way that they're going to be utilized in this. And somebody that we've seen all over the place, per usual, but even more so, has been quarterback Taysom Hill, which I think that's actually the only position we didn't see him play so far this offseason.
Yeah, his quarterback days might be over, but I think he's going to be the kind of a hybrid fullback, tight end, might even be some tailback, running back. He's going to be a guy who's going to be a lot of places, as you mentioned, and I can see him kind of playing that Justin Strelzik position that San Francisco's fullback has been, Pro Bowl several different years. Taysom Hill looks like he could be a guy who can fit in that position because if you have him coming out of the backfield as a receiver, that's going to be an issue. If you have him coming out of the backfield when he's 5-7 yards deep, taking a handoff, and we've seen him take some handoffs, that's going to be an issue because he's a big, strong dude. And if he gets past the first level, God help the guy who's trying to tackle him in the secondary. And so I think he's re-energized by what he's seeing, by the way he's being utilized. And not to say he was utilized poorly in the past, but when you get something new, if you're a guy who's been in the offense and has gotten a little accustomed to it, and you see the success this offense has had, and they say, look, we're going to have you be in this position. Sometimes you're going to be Greg Kittles, who's been a Pro Bowl tight end. Sometimes you're going to be Justin Strelzik, who's been a Pro Bowl fullback. Sometimes you're going to be, in the slot, where, Debo Samuel's been. Those kinds of things have to excite a player on offense.
Yeah. I mean, I think he likes being challenged and doing different things. Kubiak was talking today about just how intelligent he is as a football player and how quickly he grasps different things. Looking at another position, somebody who I think could be used in a lot of different ways as well, or maybe just kind of maximizing their potential, is Alvin Kamara. He wasn't utilized as much in the pass game as we have seen him in the past, but we saw him, with some really deep passes from Carr and making some big plays over the past couple days.
I think he likes the fact that you don't have to be the primary to be involved in the play. You might not be the first look, but you're a guy who better stay alive because you can end up being the target. And I think he likes that. I think, in the past we've seen if Alvin wasn't the first look, maybe he didn't get a look. And so I think he likes just the opportunities to have plays made when, because there are going to be some times where obviously the primary guy is going to be covered. And with this motion and the way you get guys involved, and we didn't see a lot of movement from Alvin last year. He's always been fantastic coming out of the backfield on those option routes. And we didn't get to see a whole lot of that last year, in the last couple of years probably. But I think he's having more options, and I think he enjoys, again, he's a guy who likes just the concept of the movement, of having the defense guessing. And I think one of the things we heard the quarterback say is, Derek Carr say, everything looks the same. It looks the same from a standpoint of lining up. And then you run the play, and he said, look, we can tell you how you can see how we're going to line up, and sometimes we can tell you to play, and you still won't be able to stop it because there are so many options to it.
Sure, and I think that's helped the defense also. Yeah. I mean, DA's talked about it, Demario Davis has talked about it. They don't know what to expect anymore, and so it's going to help them once the regular season gets here and they start seeing some iterations of this offense.
Absolutely. I mean, because now you can't be comfortable. And I mean, this defense, not to say that they were comfortable, but they were comfortable with what they were doing scheme-wise. But you're going to see this offense more because it's successful. You're going to see this offense in the NFL. And we've seen this offense have success against the Saints. So to be able to practice against it, you hope they'll be able to play better against it. And hopefully the Saints will be able to do something with it because they've got to tighten up their run defense. Their run defense was not what we're accustomed to seeing last season. And this offense will challenge that in the training camp, and they'll get some more challenges out of it in the regular season. They'll certainly get some challenges out of it in the joint practices because they'll be going against San Francisco, the originator of this offense right now as it is in the NFL.
Yeah, I think those joint practices, that game is going to be a lot of fun for many different reasons. Speaking of the running back role and Kamara, what do you think that maybe Jamal Williams, Kendre Miller are going to be able to do this season?
Well, the thing we've noticed about this offense also, you need more running backs. And running back is a heavy-duty position. You take a lot of punishment. You need guys to, and we also know that Alvin Kamara isn't a guy who needs to have 25 carries a game. This offense doesn't lend itself to that. Even in San Francisco with Christian McCaffrey, he's not going to carry it 28 times a game. So you need to be able to spread the wealth. Kendre Miller, I hope. We saw some flashes last year early, especially in training camp and in preseason, that he could be a player. And then when he finally got healthy, he looked like he can be a player. So he should add something to this offense. And look, Jamal Williams, I'm sure, is energized by this offense because he did not have the kind of season that he wanted to have. He led the NFL in rushing touchdowns for Detroit 2 years ago, and then he gets one on basically the last play of the season last year. That's not the type player he is or wants to be. And so you can spread the wealth because you can have both of those guys. You can have there might be some formations where we might have a chance to see all three of those guys out there at the same time, but certainly we'll probably see two of them out there at the same time in a lot of formations. So you spread the wealth and you get guys more involved. And look, the more snaps guys get, the more reps they get, the more involved they are, and the more invested they are.
Something that looked very different and is going to be very different for every team is the new kickoff rule. It's very, very, it looks crazy. You kick off from your own 35-yard line. The opposing team lines up on the 40-yard line. And your players from the kicking team line up there as well. So everyone's kind of in this like weird setup zone. Nobody can move until the ball gets into the hand of the returner or hits the ground. I don't know if anybody knows what it's actually going to look like, but it has been interesting to watch it play out a little bit in practice.
I like Dennis Allen when he says, look, we don't know what it is. And we won't know until we get into a game and see it applied. And so that's one of the things about it. It does bring the kickoff back, though. This makes the kickoff a live play again instead of so many touchbacks. This makes it a live play again. And you have a very good chance of being able to start your offense at the 30, 35. And maybe if you pop one, 50 on the other side of the field. And it also puts into play an extra returner. It won't just be Rashid Shaheed back there. You got to have two returners now because you don't want to have the option of the kicker kicking it on an angle and you can't really get to it and set up your blocks. So you're going to have two kickoff returners back there. So there's going to be some value there because one of the kickoff returners we know is going to be Rashid Shaheed. The other one might be Alvin Kamara. It might be Taysom Hill.
We saw Jamal Williams out there.
Yeah, Jamal Williams. It might be Chris Olave.
Yeah.
We just don't know, but it's going to be two skilled players back there who can make plays and who might be able to take it to the house. And that's going to bring excitement to the team. And it also might help the offense because now you shorten the field if you get a decent kickoff return.
Yeah, Riz said that if it goes out of bounds, then it goes to the 40. I mean, that is a crazy disadvantage.
So now, you got no incentive to kick it out of bounds.
Yeah.
You got to kick it to somebody. And you better kick it. And you can't really kind of angle it to the coffin corner. You got to kick it to someone. You got to decide which guy you want to kick it to and risk it with. And say Rashid Shaheed returns 140 yards. Well, now next time, do you kick it to Alvin Kamara and he runs it back, 35, 40 yards?
Right.
You got to pick your poison.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be an exciting play again because you just bring it back into the game because we got so accustomed to not seeing kickoff returns now, and you bring that play back into the game. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's definitely something to watch during the preseason games because I think they'll probably take them a little more seriously, at least those snaps, to make sure that they really are getting a good look at what this is going to be.
Who you got, who you're going to have covering that kick, because now you can't just say, well, we can just put this guy out there. Now you got to really think about who you want covering kicks because now there is so much more incentive, again, for them to return it. And I think there's so much more opportunity to break one that you better have somebody out there who really understands what they're doing.
Yeah. That is definitely something we'll continue to watch. There are a lot of, I don't want to say position battles because you don't know quite yet, but linebackers, I mean, you have DeMario Davis, Pete Werner, and then Willie Gay Jr. has come in here, and he's been a force. I think he has attacked an opportunity that he sees here.
I think there's a possibility that Willie Gay could force this team to play 3 linebackers. Because Pete Werner is no slouch. And I think if you want to have your best 11 on the field, I think at some point you're probably going to have 3 linebackers out there. Because I don't know, I'm not saying they don't feel great about their safeties, but you have Tyrann Mathieu. You feel pretty good about Jordan Howden. You feel pretty good about Jonathan Abrams. But I don't know beyond that how great the Saints feel about their safety situation. I know they like to play the big safety sometimes, but if Willie Gay is what Willie Gay it has been and what we believe him to be, he's got who can run. And that's critical in this defense. You got to be able to run. And if he can run, that means, 1, he can cover. And 2, that means he's a guy who, when these mobile quarterbacks get out of the pocket, he's a guy who can track them. That's what he did for Kansas City and did it very well. And now every quarterback in the NFL is mobile. So you got to have somebody who can run those guys down. And the Saints did a horrific job of that last year. They couldn't track quarterbacks, and that cost them several games, that mobility, because you got to be able to get guys on the ground, and they weren't able to do that often enough. They were really low in sacks, I think 32 or so in sacks last year. They need to raise that number, and if you don't raise that number, you at least better be able to get to the quarterback when he gets out of the pocket and keep him from breaking off a 15-yarder or more. They got to have somebody who's capable of doing that. And Willie Gay's been able to do that. So I think they're going to have to find a way to get him on the field. His talent might make room for him, and I don't necessarily know that means pushing Pete Werner off the field. I think the Saints might make accommodations to have all 3 of them out there.
Yeah, it's definitely something that they're going to have to look at because he stood out to me. I know that they are tweaking some things on the defensive side. You have Kool-Aid McKinstry, who is going to get back on the field soon. He's going to be a corner, but is he going to play inside, outside, both? It seems like they might try him out at both places.
Well, you need outside corners because guys get hurt. Unfortunately, Marshon Lattimore has been hurt the last 2 seasons. We've seen Paulson Adebo be injured. He had an ankle injury a couple of years ago, and it took him almost the whole season to be able to recover from it. So you have to have outside corners, and he can do that. We know that you also need slot corners, and Alontae Taylor, it sounds like, has embraced the position. And if he has, he's got the talent to do it. But look, I don't know of a different way to say this. He just didn't want to do it last year. He didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And he did. He even said, at one point he was satisfied to, like, if I can't win outside corner, then I'll come off the bench, but I don't want to play that. And it's like, dude, you're one of the best defensive players on this team. They're trying to get you on the field. And I think he's embraced that. I'm one of the best players on this team, and they're looking for ways to get me on the field, and the best way to get me on the field is right here.
Yeah.
So he can do that. And I don't know if Kool-Aid, if it's a competition, I don't know that Kool-Aid can beat him out. 1, he's already behind because he's been injured.
Right.
And 2, Alontae Taylor has had a year in it, and now he's embracing it. But if you're a talent like we believe Kool-Aid is, He's going to be on the field because you've got to have corners. You got to be able to cover because nobody's playing just 2 receivers now. Everybody's playing 2 receivers and a slot guy, and they're playing 4 wide out, and they're playing, three wides and a tight end who's really, really good as a receiver. So you got to have as many good corners as possible. So he's going to find a way on the field if he can catch up.
He is working his way back on the field. We saw him participating in individual drills during minicamp, which was obviously more than what he was able to do during OTAs, did not participate at all in rookie minicamp. So he is progressing. There are a couple other rookies on the team that we have seen in different positions. Obviously, the one that stood out to everybody was Tali Fuaga, who was drafted as a right tackle and has moved over to left tackle. That's where he started day 1 of rookie mini camp. And we saw Trevor Penning on the opposite side. It is something that we've seen continue throughout all of offseason. It's hard to tell at this point because they're not wearing pads, they're not going full speed, but it seems like each player is embracing their new role, and the feedback from the coaches and players around them has been good.
Well, Fuaga has reason to embrace it because he's playing a very valuable position. Going from right tackle to left tackle, obviously they feel like he's got the athleticism to do it. He feels good about it. He's played it a little bit before, so he's comfortable. I think the guy who has to be happiest of all is Trevor Penning because
he seems like it. He seems like he's walking around lighter, happier.
I mean, this is brand new life for him. I mean, this is a great second chance for him because it just wasn't working at left tackle, which made almost the necessity to draft Fuaga and to basically put him at left tackle because they wanted to give Trevor Penning a chance at right tackle because they feel like Fuaga can play left tackle. And so far, he hadn't shown anything to say otherwise. But Penning needed a fresh breath. And this is a way to get him on the field and hopefully to get him moving in the right direction because, to say his first 2 seasons were disappointing would be a vast understatement. Mm-hmm. He just didn't play well when he got a chance to play. And so hopefully with this new offensive scheme, a new offensive line coach, basically a fresh start for him. It's almost like I don't want to say he's a rookie all over again, but it's a brand new life for him. So he's got a chance to wipe the slate clean and to go out there and be a totally different guy, but the Trevor Penning that they hope to see from the left side, just flip it to the right side.
Mm-hmm. Another rookie that got a lot of attention as soon as he was drafted was quarterback Spencer Rattler. He looked great in rookie minicamp, and then it seemed like the speed of the game got a little quicker. You started getting some of the veterans on the field around you. Things speed up, and he struggled a little bit. But he seemed to have settled a little bit more this past week.
Yeah, let's hope it's been a great learning session for him because I think what he's found out is arm talent can get you a lot of plays in college that they can't get you in the NFL. And even though, you want to get all the interceptions out of the way here, training camp, mini camp, and those kinds of things. But I think he's found out, those windows get tighter and you've got to be more anticipatory in your throws as opposed to waiting to see the guy open. You got to throw it where he's supposed to be. And you got to trust that he's going to be there because if you wait for him to get open, it's too late.
Right, the window is closed.
Yeah, the window is closed, and we've seen that several times here.
Yeah,
where the guy got open and he threw it when the guy got open, but that was too late. You got to throw it when he's on the move. Otherwise, in the NFL, there's probably going to be a pass breakup or a pick.
Yeah, he threw a couple long balls though that looked great. I think he definitely has the strongest arm.
Well, he threw one today, a high one in a tight window to A.T. Perry, and he came down with it in the end zone. I mean, now A.T. Perry can make some freakish catches. He's just got to be consistent, but he can make some freakish catches. But Spencer Rattler is probably one of the few guys that I can think of who could make that throw. I mean, it was high and it was hard and it was in a tight window, and he made that throw.
Yeah, I got to give a hat tip to Jay Kaner because last year probably wasn't how he wanted it to go. He had a miss the first 6 weeks of the season and then, didn't really get into a great rhythm, but he came in here ready.
Look, I know Dennis Allen said he wanted a quarterback competition between Rattler and Haener, and I know it's early, but Haener has the lead on that one. Haener has at times looked fantastic this offseason, and it looks like he really has a good grasp of what they want to do offensively. He looks like he's born for it, for what they're doing. I mean, he looks like a natural, and what he's doing, and I say that And we take into account Jake Hayner's not running with the first team offense. He's not out there throwing to Chris Olave, and he's not out there throwing to A.T. Perry and Rashid Shaheed and the starting tight end and Taysom Hill. And he's out there throwing to the guys he's practicing with, obviously, and he's throwing against the number 2 defense, but still, he has looked fantastic at times.
Mm-hmm. And he's making his receivers look good, or the tight ends, whoever he's throwing to. There was that one play that stood out to me. I think it was last week, where they snapped the ball almost over his head, and he was able to catch it, recollect himself, and then hit somebody downfield. I want to say it was Olave who might have been in at that point, but definitely has shown some good decision making as well. Rookies, there's a couple of them we haven't seen a lot of, but other than that, from the last year players, somebody who's been thrown into a different position is Nick Saldiveri as the left guard now. I don't know if it's something he'll stay at, because I think Ali Udo might be in that role. He'd been injured earlier this summer, so we'll see how that kind of plays out. But Saldiveri looked like he was comfortable and he was excited about that opportunity.
That's going to be a good fight for that position.
Yeah.
And whoever doesn't win that position is obviously going to be in line to be the 6th lineman, and he's going to be a swing guy who can play, left guard, right guard, and maybe a little bit of tackle. We don't know. But that's going to be a really good position battle that we're going to watch through training camp, because, we're talking about the Saints having essentially 3 new offensive linemen. You're going to have a new left tackle, you're going to have a new right tackle, and you're going to have a new left guard. Whatever happens, those 3 positions will have new players starting in those positions. So you hope that there's going to be a great competition there, because I feel like left tackle's pretty much locked up. I know they talk about competition. Fuaga is not going to lose the left tackle position. Okay? He's going to be your starter at left tackle. And I feel like Penning has a really good head start at right tackle, to where he'd have to fumble it, so to speak. He's going to have to fumble the bag. And so the left guard, I think, is going to be the most intriguing of those battles, because you do have some fluctuation there between the 2 players. And Saldiveri got the head start, obviously. He was here last year, and he starts out pretty strong here. I mean, he gets a good look in OTAs and minicamp. And now you got to see if he can hold on to it. But if he can't hold on to it, that might not necessarily be a bad thing, because that might just be that someone beat him out, and then you have a valuable 6th offensive lineman. And a lot of guys in this organization have kind of started that way. I know Zach Strief started that way as the 6th offensive lineman and the heavy tight end, and then he plays right tackle for you for 10 years. So you can start there and you can finish the way you want to, but it's going to be a really nice battle. It's going to be something worth watching. I would imagine they're going to swap out, who goes with the 1s and the 2s from day to day in training camp, and we're going to have to watch closely, especially in the joint practices, because that's where you get a really great look at things in the joint practices, because when you have that joint practice against San Francisco, those guys don't let up on you as your teammates might. Mm-hmm. That's a fight when you play in those joint practices, basically. We've seen it with the Chargers. You guys saw it with Green Bay a couple of years ago. The joint practices are better than the actual preseason game, because they are going at it. The 1s are going at it. Mm-hmm. And there's some talking, and those guys are physical, and they are really getting after it. So I'm looking forward to joint practices, especially against that San Francisco defensive line, which has been so great for the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, speaking of talking, there was a little talking today at practice.
Yeah.
A couple skirmishes.
Yeah, a little skirmish, and then we saw, Marshon get a pass breakup, and he, let the offense know about it. So, these guys, they're just getting at the point. It's probably a good break, because they're just getting at the point after these 3 days and after the OTAs where they're tired of seeing each other. Yeah. And so they're probably sick of seeing each other. And when you make a play, you're going to let the other guy hear it, and he doesn't want to hear it, and it's hot outside. And it's a lot more conducive to fighting when it's hot, because guys are already aggravated, and then you're rubbing it in. And so, it's always good. It's great competitive spirit. You don't want to see guys actually throw punches, but you do like to see them, ticked off at each other.
Yeah, you want them to care. You want them to have some pride about how they're playing, even though it is just minicamp and they're not out there trying to win anything right now. You mentioned Marshon Lattimore there. Hadn't talked about him yet. He was the big question mark coming into minicamp, whether he was going to be here, where he stood, his thoughts. He seems like he's ready to attack this season and prove to people that, yeah, he's been hurt the last 2 years, but he is still the number one cornerback in the league.
Yeah, you wanted to see if he was going to be in a good headspace. He seems to be. And next, you want to see how he was going to be physically, and he seems to be. And he did. I didn't really think about it from that standpoint, but he did have 2 freakish injuries. I mean, he injured his spleen and his kidney and his ribs a couple of years ago. And then last year he gets rolled up on the ankle. So it was like, it's not like he pulled a hamstring or something that he did. It was just some freakish things that happened. And so when he's on the field, obviously he's a difference maker. And, now he cleared the air and said, hey, people have been talking, saying me and, Dennis Allen had bad blood. I didn't have a problem with him. I don't think he had a problem with me. I don't want to go anywhere. We will see how genuine that is as it plays out. But he seems to be in a really good headspace. And that's all you can ask for this time of year. You just want the guy to be in the right frame of mind. You want him to come to work, ready to work, not be a distraction. I don't think he has been. You want to see him be productive, which Marshon always is when he's on the field. And so you just want to see the guy in the right frame of mind, in the right place, because he's got teammates that he has to answer to. He's accountable to those guys. When you go out there for the Saints defense, you're accountable to Tyrann Mathieu. You're accountable to Mario Davis. You're accountable to Cam Jordan and Carl Granderson and Pete Werner and Willie Gay. And you're accountable to those guys. Those guys expect you to do your job. Paulson Adebo. Those guys expect you to do your job at a high level. So you have to perform not just for yourself, but to hold up your end, your 1/11th of that defense. And so I think Marshon, right now anyway, looks like he's in a great frame of mind.
There was a lot of talk of culture at the end of the season. We know that Mickey Loomis talked to the team at the end of the season. It's been something that's been brought up over the last couple weeks. This team seems like they're getting along. They enjoy being around each other. They're spending time together outside of the locker room, outside of football here at the facility. They're doing stuff together. Everyone seems like they're, as you said, in a good headspace there, but also they are committed to each other. And I think they understand what it takes, what you have to do every single day to be there for your teammate and to be there for this team.
I think Mickey phrased it well. This team had been together for so long, and the core of it had so much success that you start to maybe kind of take things for granted.
Sure.
And so you're not as diligent and detail-oriented as maybe you could be or should be. And that goes for the front office too. And that's what he was talking about. And so I think you get back to basics by saying, okay, we're going to get back to what made us successful. And what made us successful primarily had a lot to do with it was everything is attention to detail. We gotta make sure every nail is nailed in, every screw is screwed, and we got to make sure that everything is down to the minutia. We've got to make sure that it's taken care of. And I think they've gotten back to that. And you need to have, now some of these things you can't force, it has to be organic. You can't make guys like each other.
Yeah.
They got to like each other genuinely. They got to want to be around each other. You can schedule as many team dinners as you want to, but if guys don't like each other, they're not going. But if you got position groups saying, hey, all of the defensive backs, we're going to go and get wings tonight. No, that's the defensive lineman thing. But if you got everybody saying, okay, we're all going to steak night, that's what you need to have organically. You need guys around each other who actually want to be around each other. And I think they've gotten back to that. I think, some of it was, having Mickey Loomis, and I'm sure Dennis Allen, stressed those things. But a lot of it has to do with these guys better like each other organically, because that's something you can't force.
Well, it seems like a lot of this activities, what they've been doing has been player driven, and not only the veterans that have been leading it. So definitely a good sign there. All right. Before we kind of put a bow on all of this, the one thing that I think has been a big question mark is the wide receivers. Where are you at now that you've seen them for, mini camp, OTAs, 2 months kind of on the field? How would you stack up 1, 2, 3?
I mean, I still don't feel great about it because there's just so many questions. We know Chris Olave. We know Rashid Shaheed. We feel good about those two. We think we feel good about A.T. Perry based off, 2, 3, 4 games from last season.
I think that's the natural 1, 2, 3 that you're looking at right now. And they're obviously on the team. They're going to be a part of the receiving
and that's
core.
What you feel good. That's what you kind of feel good about. Beyond that, okay, so you got, Cedric Wilson, and you got Equanimous St. Brown, and you got Stanley Morgan, and so where's the fit? Because those guys, they're going to have to, and they have played special teams before, but they're going to have to be special teams contributors also. So who's going to step out and really show you something in training camp, I think, because it feels pretty jumbled there beyond the first three. And again, I feel really good. I feel really good about Chris Olave. He's back-to-back 1,000 yards. I feel pretty good about Rashid Shaheed because we think he can be a really good receiver, maybe even better than as a returner. And he's a Pro Bowl returner, all-pro returner. So we think he's pretty good. I just don't know how to feel about AT. I mean, the eye test is great.
He's had some really great moments.
Eye test is great. Now we got to see if he can do it Sunday to Sunday to Sunday. And that's going to be the question with him. And the other guys they're brought in pretty much for depth and for special teams help, but can they help in this offense? And this offense has been known to really transform guys. And, this offense can get guys open. They scheme guys open. The formation, they get guys open. This motion gets guys open at receiver. So your hope is going to be able to help not just those back three guys, but the front three guys. Because Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, you feel like if they can catch the ball in space, this team wants to get more yards after the catch, and that's how you get it. You hit guys in stride or you get them in space, one way or the other. And this offense has done that for several teams, and these guys are going to have to be capable of breaking some tackles too. It goes hand in hand. It can't all be the quarterback in the scheme getting you open. Sometimes you got to make something out of another. Sometimes you got to catch an 8-yard pass and make it 20. And so, can they do that? So we'll see that. But I feel pretty good about the first two. I feel fairly good about the third, and the other three is going to be a question mark for me until I get a little bit more out of them in training camp, because they just don't have a rich history of being productive receivers. They've been somewhat productive, but not a rich history of it. Yeah,
they've been in the league. They're vets. You've been 4, 5, 6 a year, so they know how to at least stay relevant and keep a job. But how effective can they be? How much of a contributor can they be for the team? I think some of it's going to play off of the tight ends because they are utilized a lot in this offense. We know Juwan Johnson did not participate this week. He's dealing with a foot injury, so we don't have a timetable on that. If you have Taysom doing a million different things, you might have to look at getting another tight end in here. That's something they're going to have to figure out. Defensive end Chase Young working his way back onto the field. Went to go see the doctor this week, so hopefully we'll have an update on him soon. He'll change things up for the defensive line for sure. And then other than that, Ryan Ramczyk, still haven't seen him. So there are a couple of big pieces that we're waiting on as the rest of the month goes, and then we get into training camp.
Yeah, the Ramczyk situation is troublesome because he has not. Dennis Allen said a couple of months ago he hadn't seen the improvement that he hoped to see, and then he, really said the exact same thing yesterday. Hadn't seen a couple of days ago, hadn't seen the improvement that he hoped to see after that surgery. So it's concerning because we know if Ryan Ramczyk at all could be here, he would be on the field, and so that's the concerning part. Now the promising part is hopefully, knock wood, cross fingers and toes, Trevor Penning can step in and not be Ryan Ramczyk, because Ryan Ramczyk was an all-pro. But he's got to be at least serviceable in that position if he's going to be in that position. So hopefully he can give you some value there. But the Ramczyk thing really is concerning because you just, more than anything now, you get concerned about the person, not necessarily the football player, because he's played great football and he's done so while injured. So Ryan Ramczyk's not here. He's got to be really hurt. And so, now you just are concerned about the person, just saying, hey, get well for quality of life, if nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we know defensive end Tano Passanio is going to be out for a significant amount of time as he tore his Achilles earlier this offseason. So a couple things to watch over the next few weeks if we get any updates on different players. But a lot to look forward to for training camp. We're going to be out in Irvine. It's going to be good, I think, for the team to get out of the heat, spend some time together, continue to develop that chemistry, and get, a feel for what this team is going to be like this year, this new offense. And I don't know. I feel good about where we're at now, but there are definitely some things that need to improve.
Well, cautious optimism is what it is.
Questions that need to be answered.
Because you got to feel, and you really won't know I think we'll get a good feel for it. We'll probably in the preseason, we might get the best feel for it in the joint practice against San Francisco, because the preseason games are always just kind of a mixed bag. You don't know how long the number ones are going to play. They're probably going to be playing some vanilla offense. They're not going to be really scheming up much of anything. So they'll get out there, hopefully get some reps in. But at San Francisco, I mean, traditionally, the joint practice has been the preseason game. And the first preseason game is the one you don't want to run everybody out there because you don't want anybody to get hurt. And the third one is like, okay, now we got to find out the back end of the roster and which one of these guys can stand out. So it'll be interesting to see, one, how much the first team offense plays, because the starting defense, again, I think they feel pretty confident about them. Obviously, they've been in this scheme for a while, and so you're going to have to tweak around when you play in a certain offense. But we want to see what this offense looks like against an opposing defense, even if it is a vanilla defense. You just want to see it go out there and execute cleanly. And I think the best chance to see that is going to be against San Francisco, because, again, we're talking about a really, really good defense and a team that went to the Super Bowl last year. And so it's just a good test. It's going to be a really good test, I think.
Well, we'll be there every step of the way. John DeShazier and myself will have previews starting on July 23rd as camp starts on July 24th. We will have video reports, interviews, highlights, stories, podcasts almost every day.
And we won't be nearly as sweaty as we were here today.
No, thankfully not. JD, thank you so much. And we will talk to all of y'all again soon.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Saints podcast. Join us 3 times per week on NewOrleansSaints.com, the Saints mobile app, or you can download the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Saints podcast.